Ignite on junglers is something we have seen a bit in the past, mostly on Shaco, a little bit on Hecarim. However, it's becoming more popular now on a wider range of junglers. Ignite allows for you to have a lot more kill threat and dueling potential early on in the game, so because there are now ways to take Ignite without losing out on the mobility that Flash provides, then you can find yourself having a lot more early game success. So one of the main reasons to why the Ignite Smite strategy is a lot stronger right now and to why it's becoming more popular is due to the mobility you get from runes like Phase Rush and Nimbus Cloak. They both provide you with a ton of movement speed, so that the trade-off of taking Ignite instead of Flash is much more worth it now. You already have the insane sticking power from those two runes, and if your champion especially already has a gap closer built into their kit, then it makes it even better to run Ignite. So if we now move on to taking a look at 10 different junglers you can look to run this Ignite Smite strategy on, the first one is Shaco, and this is a jungler that we've probably seen take the Ignite Smite the longest out of any champion in the game. It's just overall really good on him because you got a very short cooldown gap closer in your kit with your Q once you get a couple points into that, so there's really no need to have that extra mobility from Flash. It's much better on Shaco to run the Ignite so that you do have that extra kill threat. For our second jungler that can do very well with the Ignite Smite, it's Graves, and Graves is just basically your perfect jungler with this Ignite Smite right now because he's a champion that wants to play aggressive in the early game. You want to be dueling, you want to be fighting, invading with this champion, and by running the Ignite, it just makes it so that pretty much no other jungler in the game can look to beat you in a 1v1. You also got the gap closer in your kit with your E with Graves, and then if you do take Phase Rush and Nimbus Cloak, you already have plenty of mobility in this champion's kit here, so you don't really lose out on too much by not taking Flash. You just have a lot more kill threat in the early game by running that Ignite. Now another really good jungler in the meta and another really good dueling jungler in Kha'Zix can also look to succeed a ton with this strategy. We just saw Conquer get nerfed recently, and it just makes it even better for you to now run Phase Rush on this jungler. Phase Rush is his best performing rune right now, especially over in Korea. A lot of players are running either the Dark Harvest or the Electrocute, but Phase Rush is outperforming both of those runes right now, and if you take the Phase Rush, have the Nimbus Cloak with the Ignite there, it just makes it so that your early game dueling is absolutely insane. And then for the Hecarim jungle, you don't need Ghost on this champion anymore. You can look to run the Ignite Smite, and because of Nimbus Cloak and Celerity there, it just allows for you to stick onto your opponent extremely well. You already have really good movement speed coming out of your E anyways, so it's kind of overkill a lot of the time by running the Ghost. You're already going to be able to get onto your target pretty easily with your E and with your ultimate, so you can run the Ignite there. You can have a lot more kill threat in the 1v1 in the early game, and you can also look to take Phase Rush as your primary rune on this champion. A lot of players are still leaning towards Conquer as their primary rune and then taking the Nimbus Cloak and Celerity secondary, but if you do want to take Phase Rush as your primary rune, that setup actually is his best win percent page in this patch, so you can experiment with two different setups right now on Hecarim. Now for the Master Yi, out of all 10 champions I'm going to be recommending in this video, he actually sees the biggest spike in win rate from running that Ignite as opposed to running the Flash. He's got about a 6% better win rate when running the Ignite over the Flash, and this just isn't over like a couple of games or anything. This is over a very large sample size. It's over around like 80,000 games of people running the Ignite and the Smite on Master Yi, so really good on him. It just makes it so that you do have a lot more agency in the early game with this champion. Master Yi is a pick to where he doesn't usually have the best early game matchups, or he can't usually get rolling in the early game as easily as a lot of other junglers, but when you do run the Ignite on him, it just gives you that little bit of extra damage in your 1v1s in the early game, and it just allows for you to get past your weaker early game a lot easier. Once you hit the late game as well with Master, you basically have a built-in Flash in your kit with your Q, and you also do have the insane movement speed from your ultimate, so especially once you do reach later on the game, you really don't need Flash on this champion, or it's not as beneficial as running that Ignite. So another ranged jungler in Kindred can do very well with the Ignite. You do have the gap closer in your kit with your Q, and it's on a very short cooldown when you do use your W, so you already do have pretty good mobility with Kindred. You also do rely pretty heavily on getting your marks in the early game with this champion. You want to be fighting for those scuttle crabs if your mark is there, or you want to be able to look for invades in the early game to get your mark. So by running the Ignite on her, it allows for you to win out on those early duels. It allows for you to play more aggressive and secure a lot more marks in the early game. And then for Shyvana, you can look to run this on her, but I would more so look to run it if you're playing the AD version of Shyvana instead of AP. If you're playing AP Shyvana, then having the flash is still very good on the champion, because if you're looking for like flash E plays in mid to late game fights, like a lot of your damage comes out of your E with AP Shyvana. So having flashed for you to, you know, finish off a kill in fights is definitely going to be a lot more worth it than running the ignite. But if you are playing AD Shyvana, you're looking to get right up in the enemy's face when you're playing this champion. You're going to be in melee range a lot of the time, so by running the ignite, it just gives you really good dueling potential. And very similar to Master Yi, you do have a weaker early game on the Shyvana, so when you do take the ignite, it just makes it so that your dueling potential in the early game does get a lot stronger. Now with the Warwick pick, if you take ignite on him, it just makes it so that there's very few junglers in the game that can even contest you for early objectives or for early scuttle crabs. If they try to fight you 1v1, you got damage reduction in your kit, you got healing, you got sustain from your Q, you got percent HP damage, and you add on the ignite, and it just makes it so that your 1v1 is insanely strong with this champion. You can also look to invade very aggressively in the early game with this Warwick pick, and I think especially if you're in the lower elos, then this ignite smite strategy on the Warwick can work wonders for you. Another great early game jungler that can look to run this is the Xin Zhao. You take ignite, you take hail of blades, and it just makes it so that your upfront burst is absolutely disgusting. There's very few champions in the game that are going to be able to beat you in an early 1v1 if you do take this ignite, and it just makes it so that you can invade aggressively with this pick. You can look to contest every single scuttle crab, your level 2 ganks, or even better. It just makes it so that you have so much more burst when you're going for those level 2 ganks, so just overall pretty good on this champion as well. And then lastly here to round it out, number 10 jungler on the list is going to be Rammus. So very similar to the Shyvana and the Master Yi earlier on, Rammus just doesn't have the best early game strength, or at least in terms of dueling, and when you get into 2v2s and 3v3s with Rammus, he isn't the strongest in that aspect of the game. His ganks are definitely very strong. He does have some of the best early ganks in the game, but if you're fighting for those early scuttle crabs, you're going to lose out to a lot of meta junglers. But if you do run that ignite, it kind of turns a lot of losing matchups into winning matchups. If you end up getting your Q off on the opponent, taunt them, use your W, and you have ignite, you're actually going to be able to win a lot of those early 1v1s by taking the ignite on the champion. So if you do want to give yourself a bit more early game power on Rammus, then the ignite can be very good for him. Alright, so that's going to be all for the video, guys. Hopefully this does give you a pretty good idea as to why you might be seeing more Ignite Smite in your solo queue games in the future, and just 10 champions that can work very well with this strategy at the moment. So if you guys enjoyed the video, then be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.